Okay, so hello everyone. I'm a graphic designer based out of New Delhi, India. I'm sorry for all the technical glitches. I'm not used to using Teams. I'm used to using Teams and not Zoom. It's not something which is allowed by the company I work for. But anyway, so lockdown for us, we've had 2 lockdowns in India during the pandemic. And both Pallavi and I had to get used to being back in the kitchen. A lot of the time, we have 2 children. So that's the picture that you see on your screens. And just to start out, I just wanted to say I hope all of you are safe and are healthy, and your loved ones are healthy as well. It's been a really tough couple of years almost, and just hang in there. It's we're hopefully turning that corner soon. So in India, it's things have been quite bad because generally we were unprepared like a lot of countries, and we also have a highly dense population. People live very close to each other. So we've had 2 extremely bad waves. One was earlier this year, just in April, and our city, New Delhi, was badly affected as well. In fact, even in our house, my wife, my daughter and housekeeper were ill, and we had to take care of them. And, managing the situation was, it was difficult, but we got through it, fortunately, and everyone was healthy, and it was a mild case. So we're just keeping fingers crossed that we continue to stay like that. But now all of us are vaccinated and hopefully safe from whatever other strains there might be. Things are slowly returning to normal. Travel is not restricted in India. If you're vaccinated, you do have to have a test. If you are, if you're not vaccinated, you have to carry a test result with you, which is, valid for 72 hours. So we've been having, and getting used to this situation for us was like, I went from going to an office to work to working out of my bedroom, and the things that kept us engaged, just strong through it, was cooking together. That's us peeling garlic, getting ready to make a garlic paste. Also, my plants, just looking after them. It helped me distract and keep my mind occupied. But I was during meetings. Now we've moved house and I do have some space to work, but it was tough with everyone being, in online, my children going to online school, Pallavi working online as well as me. So just finding spaces, finding devices enough for everybody was quite a challenge, but we got through it. And it was like in meetings, if my meeting started early, there'd be people crawling out of the bed in the background. It was quite good fun. But yeah, we've got through the worst. And yesterday in India was one of the biggest festivals in the northern part of India. It's a festival called Diwali, and it's a festival of light. It celebrates the return of the King Ram back to his kingdom. He went on he was actually exiled, and then his wife got kidnapped, and then he rescues her and brings her back. And when they return to their kingdom, to celebrate their return, people lit lamps and they light up their houses. So this is, fortunately, my niece and nephew were able to visit from Mumbai, and we spent some time painting, these oil lamps, which we lit later in the evening and put around the house. We also had lights on the outside, fairy lights outside the house. Just to give you an idea of the kind of work I was doing before the pandemic hit and before I took on a full-time job. I was working in a highly labor-intensive and a multi-stakeholder collaborative environment of exhibitions, and we were doing these exhibitions at these big arts festivals, especially like, for instance, Serendipity, which happens in a state in India called Goa. I'm sure a lot of you might have heard of it. It's a big tourist destination. And this arts festival used to occur at the end of every year. And, the festival would take on these old heritage buildings and restore them, and also make that city a cultural hub for a period of a month during the high tourist season. So I was working on putting these exhibitions. This is an archival exhibition which brought together the work of a cinematographer who kind of established who shot a lot of the modern cinema that came out of India in the 50s, early 50s and early 60s. This was in a heritage building in Goa called the Adil Shah Palace. And working on these shows was a huge collaborative effort with painters, with carpenters, also logistical people who, moving artwork across the country to help us set up these shows, as well as curators and the festival organizers. So these were the kind of projects that we were doing. And I mean, the pleasure of seeing these things is when you see people interact with the exhibit. So this was a show which was done in 2018, or late 2017. And, it brought together this person's work and his documenting of this birth of new cinema in India in one sense. And the other work that I was doing was also with these cultural institutes from various countries. So, like, for instance, Institut Français, which is the French Cultural Institute in India. And it was an exhibition which brought together photographers from India and France and their work, which was part of the art fair, which happens every year in New Delhi in February. And for this show, we got to take over this house, which is kind of, it's an uninhabited house, which we got to do the show in. It's in central Delhi. Is everybody able to hear me still? Yeah, okay, thank you. And please stop me if you want to ask a question. So this was done across this building. We actually went there and, worked with people to revitalize the garden, plant the grass, spruce it up again, but leave the house intact. And these were the different artists. This is an artist from India whose work deals with these. She kind of adapted the space to it. What you see outside is a French photographer's work. So Vibha is the artist she works with. She worked with a lot of the material which came out of what we had adapted the building and what changes we made to the building. So her work encapsulated some of that. These are some other pictures from that show. So these shows typically took, there were teams of 15 to 20 people working on it, apart from the artists. Sorry, I don't know, let's jump back to that slide. And then this was a much bigger show again at the Serendipity Arts Festival in 2018, which brought together how modern photography was established in India. So this was a show which, this is just a walkthrough, but this, for instance, is someone with a box camera, on the street, who was documenting in the early 60s when tourism really picked up in the country, and the hippie movement happened. There were a lot of people traveling through Rajasthan and Delhi, visiting Pushkar or Ajmer, and there were a lot of foreigners who would get that picture taken as as memorabilia to take back. And part of the show was, it was a collection of this photographer's work, and this was the show put together. And then there was a mix between this and modern contemporary photographers as well. And here there's like Uzma, who had documented protest in India and how people were protesting from different things: sexual rights, land rights, and different form gender rights. So this was that. This was also, it also had photography from Nepal, which is an Asian neighboring country, and how that progressed and what people were documenting in these countries or shooting in these countries. This is the work of Sukanya, and these are glass plate negatives, which were, which she had done a reinterpretation of the Ramayana again, which we were talking about just before this. And this is some work from the National Institute of Design, where the photography students there, they have been documenting regional photography. So from small towns in India, studios which have existed for decades, some of their work. And this was the last show I did, which was in 2019, the year before the pandemic hit. And this was a huge show which mixed the work of a prince from Jaipur, and he was one of the first photographers in India. And as this thing of all the Europeans and the Britishers coming through, he had learned the art of glass plate photography, and this was a documentation of his work. This is just like me putting, just planning the show. So there were actually 4 galleries which we used. This is just the first one, which was the Sawai Ram Singh Archive. Again, a huge team of painters and a lot of collaborative work with people to put this together, from writing the captions. There were over 1,000 captions in this show, write-ups for all the works. And it was a big effort. And the crazy thing is that, the pandemic kind of, it put a stop to all this, because exhibitions just stopped after the pandemic happened, and there was no cultural activity of this kind. People moved to Instagram and Zoom to have shows, but it's not the same thing as seeing the physical work. And while that has been happening, these kinds of shows have just resumed. Things are slowly, people are opening these up again. And this was a show which mixed work from all over South Asia, actually. So there were people from Burma, people from Nepal, people from Sri Lanka, who displayed, and Iran as well. So this is someone from Iran who recreates famous sequences from history in her photographs. This is the production team that I used to usually work with, and all of them basically have sat out the pandemic without any work for the last 2 years. And it's only now, I think, that we'll be doing another show together in January. And fingers crossed that it does happen and everything goes well. We are all hoping that as India comes back to normal, and things have opened up, but things are still restricted and people are still wary. We hope that this goes on. So that's what I had. And now, I mean, for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, I've been working at Adobe, also because what I was doing earlier, there wasn't much happening. It was hard to continue making a living from it because it just completely dried up and there was no opportunities there. So I've been working at Adobe for 2 years now, and we've been dealing with, I mean, it's different to deal with. Design is a collaborative profession and it involves a lot of interaction, and even our teams at Adobe have been struggling because right now all our interactions are official, so they're no unofficial or just conversations by over a cup of coffee or while getting a drink of water or walking past someone's table and seeing them working. So we've been struggling to deal with that, and it's been a slow process. And Adobe, I mean, we've had a huge launch, and Max has just got over. And we are still getting used to it, although we might reopen soon. Right now, it's going back to office is primarily voluntary. You can come and meet people if you like, but it's going to be restricted to 150 people a day. But our office actually seats around 2,500 people. So it's a very small number that they're going to be letting back in. And yeah, it's been long and strenuous. Work hours are long. I don't know if that's going to change to an extent, but it's different. It's everything is official now, because you can't just have a conversation. Hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this work that I've done? Or I saw that work that you did and I thought of this. All the casual conversation has gone out, and it just seems to be through these devices that we are interacting now. So I'm going to stop if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sneep. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
But Sneep, do you cook?
Was I too quick?
Do you cook?
Do I cook? Yes, I did cook. I cooked. I took turns. I learned how to make dosas. I don't know if.
Oh, dosa. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Dosa. Yeah. So I learned how to fry dosas, and to get them perfectly circular. It was quite a learning experience doing that. So, but now I'm back to not cooking so much. But we did a lot of cooking for about 3 or 4 months before our housekeeper could come back and help us. So we had no help actually for around 6 months. I also learned how to do a lot of my own cleaning after a long time. So it was quite hectic, but yeah.
But Sudip, you must be actually you are working in Adobe, so you must be helping creative community a lot.
Yes, we try. I don't know if I don't know if people are always happy with. I mean, you guys are our biggest users and critics and users. And I remember reaching out, in fact, 3 years ago to some of you. Dan's here. We interviewed Dan for help with something on Illustrator, and Jeff. I remember. Hey, Dan. Nice to see you.
Yeah, but you said also you do kind of but while you are working Adobe, you can't meet your coworker. There was you are still doing lots of a workshop. It's kind of a communication between using new technology. What do you do?
It's different because I don't know. We had to learn to use newer tools to do things like whiteboarding, or just it's different. It's different being sitting across a table from someone rather than being in a Zoom meeting or in an online meeting where people don't have their screens on, you can't see them. It's been hard, but we've managed. And also interacting with users hasn't been with our customers hasn't been the same. So it's been a challenge, and also just building relationships with, say, our engineering teams or our product management teams. I switched teams during the pandemic, so meeting my new partners it didn't happen. I mean, I still haven't met them, and it's been over a year now. So, and in fact, I met some of them, and just the first thing that hits you is that what you see on screen in terms of scale and what you imagine of that person is totally different when you see them physically. So that was a really hard thing to cross.
But how is your when you're working for making like exhibition, design like exhibition work, but obviously you have been working like so many different team to work with them, but physically like face to face. How are they? Lighting people.
Well, they are fine. Some of them, in the sense that my production team, because they had good savings, they managed to ride it out. But I think they did try alternative businesses in between, and it didn't work out. I also know that, like, for instance, the printers, like, because the digital printers, the guys who cut the vinyl for you, who print all of that, they had a really tough time. So a lot of people just went back to their villages or their hometowns, and for the photographers, I think it's been the hardest. The ones who work the news beat might still have had work, but people in the art photography market not being able to go out or capture or shoot, it's been a tough time.
Yeah. But you're going to have a new exhibition next January.
Yes.
What is the title? What do you going to have?
It's called Convergence, and again, it's with the French Cultural Institute, and it's again about how certain French photographers came here when India was gaining independence. So there's a famous photographer from Magnum called Marc Ribou. So there's like a showcase of his work, and as well as some contemporary Indian work, which will be mixed in with that.
Wow. Hopefully you can have like a show.
Next January. I hope it goes through. It's at an exciting space as well, which is like one of the, there's a person who owns, one of the largest owners of or private art collections in India. It's their museum or their exhibition space. So it's very exciting to be, if it comes through. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. But I do hope like we can all visit your show.
Yes. India is open for tourists and people coming. There's no restriction. We are not restricting anybody from coming in. You just need to have vaccination certificate, I think.
Yeah. But it's pretty like a good luck for the show. Like please send us the information.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just give me a second. I need to just move screens. Give me a second.
No problem at all. Yeah. Pallavi is filmmaker. So now she is going to talk about. She's actually teaching. She's having a lot of workshop to teach how to use the media or how to use but making like a film to the kids. So whenever, Pallavi, are you ready?
I am.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can see your screen. So I pass to you. So this is Pallavi. Yeah.
Yeah, hi Nikki. Thank you so much for having me, and hello to everyone here. I'm born in New Delhi and been here all my life, and studied to be a filmmaker and practiced documentary filmmaking for many years. But around 5 years ago, I think particularly after I had my own kids, I started thinking about how filmmaking and animation are tools that could perhaps be given to children at a younger age. And that's when I started the Little Picture Project. So the Little Picture Project, started with the idea that essentially children, say age 10 and above or even younger, should be allowed to use video or animation as a creative outlet, like they do painting and sculpture and drawing and any other tool. Basically, they have a lot of access to viewing, but not the same access to making. They have the devices in their hands all the time. So that's the premise with which I started the Little Picture project. This is a couple of images from the last few years. I work primarily with schools across Delhi, and that's something that changed, but it's schools and colleges across Delhi, and I work in the after schools program as well as within the curriculum, and the primary focus is on storytelling and getting the children to understand the basic tools of how to use a camera. So here you have someone in the top left image playing with green screen or chroma key. So what I found through the journey is that the way children innovate and respond to the medium, and they interpret it in ways that I feel is always a surprise, and it's the learning process is two ways. So yeah, just a few more images from of the kind of workshops that occur and in school environments, also to give you a sense of how things have changed. So all this is, equipment is hired, brought in, things are set up, and the children, of course, get to interact with each other. And there's, often acting. They all love to be, fiction is always more pleasurable than nonfiction. But, so this is just a glimpse of what the workshops were in the last 5 years. Just want to play a small film of which is made by one of the students who's an art student. Audio is not there. Should I pause? It doesn't have audio. Just a second. Sorry, give me a second. This is one of the projects that I worked with that I felt was with a care home in New Delhi, with girls who are in an orphanage. And the organization wanted to bring in filmmaking as a tool for them to be able to look at it as a way for them to perhaps as a chance to look at it as a vocation and an option for a training in case they were interested in taking it forward. So this was a very different situation where there was, limited access, but I did find that the students had an amazing amount of creativity and imagination, and it was the first time they were working with the medium. So here we have them at work. The image on the left is the room that we were working in, and the image on the right is us at work. So it would be a setup that occurred every day for a couple of hours every day. And as you can see, while the resources were limited, they still managed to achieve, high levels of lovely outputs, and also just a very different kind of approach. What we looked at showing them was basically the theme given to them was what would your dream world be like, or what would your ideal world be like? And so the way they visualize things in terms of how they would like their dreams and their ambitions got translated into stop motion animation films. Sorry, but I'm not going to play this right now for you. Perhaps I can put them in the link at the end so that you can view them. I will definitely do that. So this is a little film that they had made without the sound. Okay, I'm just going to play this anyway for a little while.
ये है आयशा और ये है उसकी दुनिया। लेकिन सपनों की दुनिया में तो सब कुछ पॉसिबल है। आयशा चॉकलेट की नदी में घूम रही है। बस एक बार सोचती ही है और वो चीज झट से सामने आ जाती है। इस दुनिया में तो पैसों की भी जरूरत नहीं होती। काश आयशा के सपने सच हो जाते।
You could hear the sound?
Yeah. But it's amazing.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to quickly say this is, I know that this was in Hindi, but what I just wanted to say that, just to explain it, their dreams are about having access to unlimited food and sweets and a river of chocolate, and where money doesn't have the same value that it has. You see a few, I can scroll back. It's going to be a bit, how do I, yeah. So if we just scroll, where there's no fighting, this image talks about, they must be having a lot of, the background they come from, it's not easy, so this image symbolizes that. And then they go into their dream worlds where they talk of, as you can see, a river of all things delightful that will make their world, just they're simple things. If you notice, there's a mobile phone there, which they don't have access to, the little phone, as well as a cross on the money sign. So yeah, I just wanted to share this film with you. And since the sound is playing, should I quickly play the previous film as well? Or just go ahead? I can just go ahead as well.
But the thing is, this is also, but Parvich, can I ask some question? They are all kids are in orphan.
Yes, in this case, yes.
In this case, yeah. Then how long it's going to take to make that one video until editing? How long did it take?
There's a constraint always. So the workshop was, I think, over 2 weeks, where we worked for a couple of hours every day. And then they came in to edit. Like, I have an image here. I'm going to go back.
But basically, they developed the idea. Then also they shoot. Then also they made also small chocolate.
Yes,
also
absolutely. Yeah, totally. And there are 3 films actually. There were 3 groups. So I'm just screening one for you. But here, for example, you see the editor in the top left image who I work with. So I always bring him in to guide them on the editing process. I work independently, for the camera work and so on. And depending on the situation, I bring in resource people. I feel filmmaking is also, can require some inputs from experts. So he comes in and guides them. And a lot of the workshops, they ideally learn to edit on their own. In this case, he was just there to help them put the film together. Yeah. And I'm also going to go back because I just wanted to give you a sense quickly. How much time?
Please.
Yeah. I wanted to screen that because it was an example of the kind of projects happening before, plus also the way students respond to what you give them. And honestly, why I teach is because the way they look at something like green screen or special effects is so different. This is an art student responding to an element that is normally used to change the background, in big films. So I just find it fascinating the way they use the medium differently. So just going forward, then the pandemic. The pandemic came in and it changed everything about the way that I would be working with students. First of all the work that I did have with schools dried up because filmmaking is not considered a primary form or has to be part of the curriculum. It is hard enough to get work on a normal basis where, I have to try and convince the school that this is a good thing, or, parents also need to be educated that filmmaking is something that could be a creative outlet for the child. So anyway, the pandemic came in, and as Shudeep mentioned earlier, there was a lot of cooking, and that's my daughter there, our daughter, working on a little project where we're just kind of painting an old table outside. So there were many things that happened, but we kind of tried to make sense of being isolated on our own with a lot of housework. And yes, workshops needed to take on a new form. And so I slowly started launching, online Zoom workshops. So I worked with students. Now the paradigm shift in education is that I can teach students anywhere, which is, I guess, one of the big pluses you could look at it as a bonus of the pandemic for an educator, where I can offer this it doesn't have to be based in India, it could be anywhere. So in this case, it started off with students sometimes in other cities in India who came together, and we would do online workshops. The mode changed in terms of we couldn't look at interaction. So it couldn't be fiction. It had to be students working on their own. And I found animation or stop motion animation to be an easy and contained way for this to be done, because they could have their own setups, and then they could, work. If they wanted to get into actors and the interaction with peers, that really wasn't possible. So I'm just going to go on to talk about a project that I worked on remotely with the National Institute of Design with college students here, where we looked at the notion of home and the idea of how that notion has changed during the pandemic. So for each one of us, here are a few thoughts that emerged while I was exploring the idea. So what does home mean to you? The word home mean to you was the question I posed to a few people. And here are some of the responses I got. A person, a loved one, not so much a place, but the feeling of being at rest and at home with someone. Peace, acceptance, and security. A large tree. Safe space for pain and growth. My kitchen, food, the taste of raw mango with salt and vinegar. A refuge, an oasis. So these were some of the thoughts just about the word home. And then after that, the question came as to how do you feel about home, your space around you during the pandemic? And the responses, of course, were varied. Some were similar, some were different. It was a pause for many people, a pause from the normal flow of things, where I cooked and cleaned in a loop. For some, it was a place they couldn't go back to. You were locked down. You couldn't go back home at all. Where the silence is refreshing, traffic sounds replaced by bird song, blue skies. We had a lot of no traffic on the roads in Delhi, which meant, or in India, and everything was, the birds were out again. And for others, the silence is deafening. The lack of connection, the lack of human connection, being able to meet people, I think it's been a very difficult time. And this was, of course, directed towards a young audience, this workshop. So they're all between around 20 to 25. And they made self-portraits of themselves. And I'm just going to play one or two of them. They're self-portraits, which are basically pandemic portraits of how they spent their time during the pandemic.
संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है।
News from Assam, where a massive fire has engulfed a natural gas production. Shocking number, the Tabligis have
Here she talks about what she's trying to say through the film. So there are a lot of references here to things that occurred, in terms of politically and so on. And I know the audio, it's tough to describe without being here, and it will take much longer time to do that, but I just leave this on the screen for you. So she says, Noise attempts to speak to you about a journey through the pandemic and of home and its four walls that protect as well as suffocate. It amplifies the noise that the world made and got ignored, the ringing noise of one's own thoughts and the noise of the deafening silence that the lockdown brought with it. It is about the noise of privilege, chaos, and of change. So I think this says a lot to me, and I think it says a lot of the film and largely of the work that was produced during this course. I'm just going to show you one more film, which will be followed by some images of how they worked. So the other thing that will tell you about how these students managed to work in their own environments with setting up their own tripods and lighting. And that's the other revelation. You have to adjust and make things work. And that's what the pandemic has taught us. I mean, you're working with less, you're working in very difficult conditions, but work still got done and it didn't stop. So that's been an exciting takeaway.
Novel coronavirus disease spread can be stopped. Always cover mouth with handkerchief or tissue while coughing and sneezing. Wash your hands with soap frequently. Avoid touching your eyes, nose and mouth. Keep at least 1 meter distance and avoid close contact with
Yeah, so this is the second film. As years pass by, the quote, life goes on, resonates more with me. And essentially, the student also had corona, got over it. So that's what she wanted to reflect with the whole sneeze and so on and so forth. So she portrays her experience of contracting the virus, and the props used signify the trying times. And one has to overcome the obstacles and move forward. That was her message. I'm just going to play the images that will give you a behind the scenes look of. Yeah, so this wrapped up this project, and it essentially, as you saw, all of them adapted to working in, all were working at home. And so it was quite a challenge, but it was, quite amazing, the outcomes that came from this workshop. Just to wrap up, just why do I teach? So I just feel like it's a continual learning process. While teaching, I feel that there's a feedback loop that is a wonderful thing. And I got a chance to make a film, a collaborative film during the pandemic, which was for an arts festival, which was again an online arts festival. And I also worked, I haven't put in any images, but I worked in one room with a camera and a setup and lights, and animated for a period of time. And I feel, I'm going to show you 1 minute of it, but I do feel that this film that's been made after a period of time is also a response, or is in many ways, the teaching has fed into my work as well. So I'm just going to wrap up with that. It's a short film about, it's a collaboration between a ceramic artist and myself. And we were inspired by the theme of kintsugi, and we're looking at Indus Valley pottery from years ago, and how it has been displaced and it's missing. So we just take a look at it. So that brings me to an end of this presentation. I hope I haven't overshot time. Sorry about the glitches, but basically, broadly speaking, just wanted to end on that note of sharing a bit of work that I feel as an educator, this process is is cyclical, and there's a feedback loop, and yeah, that's about it. So any questions? Over to you, Vicky-san.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Pallavi. It was a great talk.
Thank you.
Yeah. Pallavi, you have been working with many kids. They was young. They have a kind of a fresh, they must have a fresh idea, which like industry people doesn't have. For example, did you get any have you got any inspiration from them?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I think inspiration has come in the form of, as I said, the way, that's why I put in the, the way they use the medium. So I was fascinated because normally as a filmmaker, we understand structure, we understand the storyline, we understand the beginning, the middle, and the end, and that's what I do teach my children. But I think one of the formats is when I've taught filmmaking to art students in some of the colleges in Delhi. The brief there is not to respond necessarily with the storyline, but to play with the medium. So you're looking, it becomes more like video art. Essentially, it's opened up that space for them. They don't have to follow the structure of the story arc, what we while they need to maintain it, but so then they play, they split the screen, they work with green screen differently. They, as you saw, in that little film I showed you. So have I been inspired? For sure. I mean, I think even the film I made, 100%, there were things there that had come in because I said, wow, I can perhaps take off on using special effects in a different manner, So yes, it's definitely, yeah.
But does have anyone from your kind of it's called your student or the children, have they become a filmmaker?
Yeah, some of them maybe. I think many of them, yeah, they have. Some of
Wow.
them, many of them are in the arts, but some of them have gone into film as well, and yeah, they're in touch. So yeah.
Wow. But also you initiate this program, workshop. I think you said it before, like you are teaching them, also you do have workshop maybe after the class or after, but not in the school classroom,
yes.
but you do it after the class.
Right.
I think is there any challenge? Maybe someone is people accepting your workshop positively, or is there any challenge?
I think it is a challenge. It is a challenge. The parents are not as. I mean, I think the thing with it is because they're 10 and 11, the child usually has to have an interest, and therefore the parent looks for the workshop. In my case, and so it is small. It is niche. My idea is, why not give it to them as part of it? Because then why should it be, let it go and out, and as many people can get this at an early age, it might spark off something for them. That's the goal. But yeah, it's a huge challenge. Schools themselves, they have such a roster of all the kind of things that they need to do. So filmmaking is not looked at as a primary. You will not drop, at least in an Indian school, music. I mean, I feel it's part of the visual arts, and it should be an extension of, painting and ceramics and so on. But yeah, some people are more open than others, but it's a big challenge. Yeah, no, they have a lot of fun. I mean, the workshops are always, it's good fun. It's just a question of understanding, changing people's mindsets and having more people come on board,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. But sorry, can I ask you, hello, Mark and Joe, can you turn on the video? But you left a comment, our little kids watched it with us here, and she did. No.
Our daughter watched it with us earlier. She's 10 years old. He said it's wonderful.
Thank you. I have to convey this to the people who made it. I will.
Yeah, that's amazing. Also, even like a remote, but I think Philippines, like Mark and George, they are based in Cebu City, so Philippines. So their child, they have been doing like online schooling for a long time.
Right.
Yeah, maybe probably like you can teach how to make filmmaking to Philippine kids as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sorry, but probably you have to leave soon.
Yeah. Just one last thought. I mean, the reason why this has all been possible is also because of technology and how it's changed. So the fact that earlier we had big cameras and now everything's on the phone and you can have this engagement happening. So one is not particular about the quality of the, camera, but more about the composition and just getting and allowing that storytelling. So there's a big plus to technology there, which in a strange way has allowed, while it's, that's it. Yeah, that's all.
I saw the board, but I think children can access for the viewing the video, but they don't have access for making, right? Making film.
Yeah.
That's great word.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we keep doing on this. But also I am going to send the link later to everyone, so you can also check your work as well. So thank you so much, Pallavi.
Thank you
for
so
your time.
Much. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Everything. Today's last speaker is Samia.
Hello.
Hello, Samia.
Hello.
Hi. But Samia, you can start to share your screen.
Yeah.
Then whenever you're ready, you can start your presentation.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
There's a lot of Zoom things I need to hide.
Yeah, I can see clearly. So you can start. Yeah. This is Samia.
Yeah. Thank you. Oops. I'm trying to hide all the Zoom things. 1 second. Yeah. So this is a picture taken in the 1930s in my village where an international school was run by my family. And it was the first co-educational school in Punjab. At that point, boys and girls would be studying separately. And a lot of diaspora from Punjabi and Indian parents across Asia and America and Canada, they would send their children to study here. So I'm starting with this picture because we've been working in a artist residency, which you can see on the left. Miki-san has been there and Dang has been there. And these are my elders of the family, and everyone has always been making their own path in terms of music, writing. My grandmom was a musician and a lawyer. She's one of the first Asian people in Cardiff to study law in England. And she married my granddad. She came back to India, even though she had the choice of living in the UK and earning much better. She wanted to come back to India and connect to her roots. And my mom's father, he was a trade union leader. So he always fighting for labor rights in the country. And this is my dad's grandfather, where he set up a community of artists and writers, and he kind of added a lot of words to Punjabi language as well that were missing. So there's a constant literature and culture, sort of international connection, and looking for new ways of living and creating meaning. And where is it? Yeah. Sorry. Phoenix is also here in the chat. That's Phoenix, one of the artists who visited us. And this is one of the buildings that were made in the 30s. And we meet here every year in the good weather, which is the winter and the autumn, to create work that is now being showcased in a festival. This two brands that my family has been established and working with is a Punjabi magazine since 1933, Preet Lari, and looking at new ideas and publishing them since the 30s. A lot of people look at Preet Lari and they say that a lot of their own education was given by this magazine because the mainstream education did not have articles and so on, especially in the 30s and the New India and the Nehru and Gandhi have visited Preet Nagar along with Rabindranath Tagore's chancellor from Shantiniketan. And education, the arts and literature is a common thread. And these are some of the graphic design inputs I've been able to create with digitizing one of the old wood types as the Preet Lari logo and creating a Mela identity, using all the 4 languages that are spoken and written and read in Punjab and India, North India. So Hindi, Urdu, English, and Punjabi. We have always been a multi-religious, multicultural society, and our village is on the border of India and Pakistan. And earlier in the first announcement, our village was supposed to go into Pakistan. And then they announced it and it was put in India. So there's a lot of work that we do with community and the idea of partition and what do borders mean today. And we've had some help for the first 2 years with the program called Creative Interruptions in the UK, which was, so the first 2 years we had funding with Arts and Humanities Research Councils from the UK and from the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow in Scotland. And we managed to host 2,600 people came to our village, just to a house, and it was crazy. And a lot of schools, and this is my mom, she's the editor of the magazine as well, explaining a little bit about the artwork. And it's fascinating to see art. And these are the lights. I actually asked Sudeep, I was like, how do you make lights? Because we had to design lights for the hall from the next village with the metal workers there. So I managed a quick solution. But it's fascinating to see people react to art and critique it while they are looking through. And I quite enjoy those conversations. This is a project by Shashank Peshawariya. He's a photographer, and he has taken pictures of fields in Punjab, and he collaborated with a photographer in Pakistan to take pictures of fields in Pakistan. And then they're just put together, and he asks the viewer to say which field is Pakistani and which is Indian. And it's interesting, the sunflower fields, there are some fields full of garbage, and what people talk about when they see the art. This is my sister's work. We've identified a community of metal workers who are recognized by UNESCO as a heritage of Punjab and India. And they're working with copper, bronze since many years. And this is the last 30 craftsmen that are left now, because they also didn't want to be photographed. They were like, our kids are not getting married anymore because our work is looked down upon. We are out, the class system, the caste system has ousted them from the main village as well. And it's very strange, the feelings they have about their work. And Ratika wanted to kind of have a portrait, and they said, okay, we can have a portrait, but we don't want to be identified too much. So then she shot a few pictures of them reflecting in the creation of metal craft that they make. And most of the problem right now that we see is that they're still making very traditional utensils for old kitchen use, and not many people are using these. So there's a design intervention in terms of product design and how e-commerce could help here is a question we have at the moment. This is the traditional workshop area in Jandiala Guru. It's 40 minutes outside Amritsar. Another portrait. Another project is Dang. Dang and I met through DTA, Door to Asia in Tohoku in 2018, and we were roommates as well. And we were preparing our presentations, being quite stressed, I remember. So Dang, I'm very happy that she came to Preetnagar in 2020 beginning, just before all the lockdown. And Dang was looking at recipes and stories around them. And here's Dang presenting to schools from outside Amritsar who came, and a lot of girls who've actually, the school is quite interesting. They graduate from the school and then they teach the next students. So they kind of, it's like a voluntary school system, and it's very, very highly reputed. And on the right, you see Nupo is the main chef in our kitchen. And this is a drawing about her, and she's explaining it to other viewers at the show. And here are some more drawings. I think Dang is kind of looking at publishing something with drawings and recipes and writings and her observations at the residency. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. That's us loitering between work, hanging around, looking at nature. There are some other projects that I've been doing during the lockdown. It helped me because I sometimes I don't have work, or I try to do work in agencies here, but the quality and it's kind of like running like a sweatshop. So then I leave or I get fired. So this year has been quite interesting because I'm in a small city, and I'm trying to see what design possibilities for me look like in terms of earning a living with more grounding, you know. So I got this book to illustrate the reflections of feminist writers across the world, sent to me by Yvette, who's a researcher in the University of Strathclyde in the School of Education. And it was very interesting because I was feeling a lot of things about COVID, and these writings helped me reflect further. Some more pages from the book. And like Charanjit was talking about in this drawing, so you living today could be like you could be living in 2018, you could be living in 1920. It's all dependent on your education and how you have learned how to live in society. And I've resonated with a lot of these points. And Christina Costa was talking about hashtag literature, that how even Twitter and just following through hashtags, there is so much material that it's almost like a library, you know. So I enjoy editorial illustrations because you can put little twists which bring the reader in. And Melissa was talking about how technology has been so helpful in helping people to connect through the lockdown, especially a lot of my friends who are working alone in an apartment and being in Delhi, haven't not met anyone for like 8-9 months. So these books are all available online for free. If you look at the titles, you'll find them. The PDFs are available. I can send the links through later as well. This is another book called The Red and Gold Pen. I went to Calcutta for this during the residency that Dang was in Preetnagar, actually. I even got her a birthday cake that Dan ordered from Calcutta. So this is one of the workshops that we're working with domestic workers in Calcutta, and it's a collaboration between the University of Edinburgh and 2 trusts that work with domestic workers and their rights, and how people's mobility from outside the city to come and work into the city and leave from the suburban areas the women travel in women compartments, and they talk about how when there is no place in the women compartments, then they go back late at night, there's no electricity, there's no lighting, and how they are asked to show their bags before entering any gated communities, which makes them feel quite, like, have you stolen anything? So it's quite, and then someone else, a maid, she was pregnant, but she's not allowed to use a bathroom in any of the employers' houses. So just the existence of class structures and caste systems, like you can't use this water glass to drink in because you come from a different caste and things. So just how do the domestic workers feel, and what are the stories? So this is one of the books. I can show you a little animation that Rishabh, who worked with me and Shadeep, actually, Rishabh studied animation further, and I was like, please can you animate this as a trailer for the book? So he was very, I have to download VLC, unfortunately. Anyway, I think, can you hear? So this is available online for free. You can download it if you like to go through it further. What's next? There's another project I've enjoyed working on through the pandemic, and it's interesting because these researchers, they make me think about all the ways that I felt those similar feelings. And I remember the poster, I was designing it when I was visiting Tokyo for DTA, and I was like, who am I? Like, why, how can I present my work here? Everyone else's work is so much better. Like, I was feeling a bit of a imposter syndrome over there, and I have felt it in other places in life as well. So I kind of channeled it into like a lizard person, where you feel like everyone else is so put together and composed, and you feel a bit like you're trying to fit in to a high expectation, or so on the post, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like on his arm it says, I was just lucky, I don't really deserve to be here. So these are just some feelings within imposter syndrome, and now this research is being published as a book. So these are some of the initial drafts, where one of the lizard people is looking at the steps to climb, but they are much larger in size. You are not good enough is one of the t-shirts, and the other one says, oops. I can't read it. Okay, anyway. So this has been helpful in reflecting a lot about stages in work as well. And there's another thing that saved me through the pandemic was CrossFit, because I know Mikisa and all of us have been doing yoga, and I found I wasn't being given the next pose in Ashtanga. They give you the next pose when you clear the previous one. So I was stuck at one pose, and I was getting quite frustrated. I was like, let me try another exercise medium, and I've been enjoying CrossFit. So the gym owner, he commissioned me a logo and a mural during the pandemic, which was fun, because after the workout I go and draw this lady who's doing double unders, which are my nemesis, and I'm trying to learn them, where you jump once and pass the rope under you twice, and you do it like 100 times. This is the t-shirt, and that's my coach. Yeah, I wanted to make something on the side of the t-shirt just to make it a bit more unique, and he had a Siberian husky as a symbol of his cubs that he's training, is how he felt. And another thing I've been keeping busy with is upping my drawing time. I really love drawing, and sometimes I don't find time for it. And I have been walking a lot during the pandemic, because we were fortunate enough to be in Chandigarh, which is quite green, and it was quiet, but the walks really kept me sane with no headphones and music. So there were some moments in the city that I've been trying to find hope during the time of COVID. And these are some illustrations in gouache. It's a very green city. I think it's one of the greenest cities in India. So I wanted to connect a bit about the trees that we find here and the moments in the city. Silver oaks, bottle brush, jacaranda. I was thinking of my grandmom, who I remember would cycle to the High Court as a lawyer on a bicycle. And then there's this big lane of trees with red leaves. And I saw this lady on a red sari, and it reminded me of that. And in the middle one, there's Swiggy was, Swiggy and Zomato, the delivery, food delivery people were one of the few people that were allowed out during lockdown. So from my window in my room, I would see a lot of people. Once in a while, the same two people would stop here and stop for a cigarette break. And then I managed to take a picture and try to draw it. So yeah, this is still ongoing. I don't have many instances yet, because I get pulled into different assignments as well, but I have enjoyed making these gouache paintings, illustrations. And on the same thread, I just got a commission from the Japan Foundation in Delhi this week. I haven't finished, there's 2 more that are left, but these are the 3 that are done. And they are reflections about COVID by writers, Indian writers, and then also by Japanese writers. So there will be an exchange, I think, later as a publication. The first writer was talking about how everyone is kind of feeling quite grateful and meditative and trying to find that groundedness. So that's the first one. The second writer was talking about how technology has enabled conversations online, which has kept a lot of us sane. And in the map one, despite all the chaos in the state and the unpreparedness, there are a lot of stories of individual initiatives. That there was this auto person who has an auto rickshaw, and he gave free rides for COVID patients throughout the pandemic, because no one else was taking them during the lockdown. And one guy in Mumbai, he sold his Ford Endeavor, and with the money he gave free oxygen cylinders to people. And in Gurudwaras, there was in the Sikh temples, they were doing some wards for when there's no beds left in the hospitals and there's no oxygen. So a lot of like charity-based work was happening. So this is to represent that. I think that's it. Oh yeah. Then another thing that kept me busy during COVID, my father has like major anxiety issues. He was just like running up and down the house, being very flustered. So we had to find something for him to do. So he's a great cook, and I think Dang also took back some pickle. So he made mutton pickle, and my school friends remember this pickle because I used to be in boarding school, and every time I used to come back, even in Srishti in Bangalore, my university, design university, they'd be like, "Where's the pickle?" So it used to really keep us going with the, hostel food and so on. So we had mutton pickle and some vegetable pickles as well, chili pickle, and I managed to sell like 200 bottles over, I think 6 to 7 months. Yeah, but I think I got tired of the shipping, so I stopped it for a while. So we might do this again. But it was interesting to look at e-commerce as a designer as well, from the perspective of a seller, because just to packaging, where to source the bottles and so on. And there was one more video I wanted to share. So this is the residency website. You can look at it later, but we've managed to, in our village, work with 500 local employees. About 70 craftspeople have been working with us on commission-based work, and about 1,200 children have had workshops from the village schools, and 240 women are freelancing with stitching and so on. And all of you are invited to visit us here whenever you like. And this is the video my sister made of the metal craft workers. This is the typical way that they create. She found it very sonically as well interesting, the sound and the meditative, almost dance, the movements, how feet also helpful in shaping utensils. Kind of sandpaper doing it with his feet.
So from the very start, we have been on Shopify. We built the...
Okay. That's it. Yeah, I think so. I think all my work kind of looks at opening possibility, or not letting somebody feel blocked in their social conditions, women, or in the class system, or by lack of education, or colonization, or not speaking English. Like there's a lot of so looking at social justice and empathy and growth together. I think most of my interest lies there, so I try to work around that and try to find a way. Yeah, thank you. Do you have any questions? Or?
Thank you, Samia.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone, do you have any question? Well, maybe you can have maybe casual conversation as well. Most of them knows Samia. Samia, do you still do yoga?
Not as much, because after CrossFit, I'm too dead to do any yoga. Just a bit, like 10 minutes.
But CrossFit is really hard.
Really hard.
Yeah.
It's quite hard, but it's quite fun after it's finished. When you're doing it, you want to cry.
Yeah. But now you become a CrossFit teacher, so teach us next time.
Next time, yeah.
In the mountain.
In the mountain.
In the mountains. Yeah, the dance, thanks, Samir, loves the illustration, of course. Yeah, that's amazing work.
Thank you.
Even Dan is also a great illustrator as well.
Yes, of course. Design boss.
Design boss. Yeah, but actually, I have some question also. Why? I think, do you think if you continue this pandemic situation, I think what do you think what is the important thing for us human being, also for us maybe, well, kind of design related people?
Yeah, I have some moments.
What
I
do
keep
we need to do
noticing
if we
moments.
continue this pandemic?
I mean, I've been kind of looking at it from the point of finding moments of connection or kindness. So, like, there was a rickshaw man pulling many oxygen cylinders and it's heavy. So, in India, we have a lot of times when someone's taking a heavy load on a rickshaw, a guy on a bike will put the foot at the back and push so that, the cycling guy can go faster. So, I wanted to draw that. So I think I'm still kind of collecting moments, but it's, I think, a good place to look at humanity, help, and community together through illustrations.
Yeah, I said before, are you going to publish the illustration as a book, maybe exhibition?
I hope so. Yeah, I need to have enough first ready, and then yeah, I would like to, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. There was Dang asked what are your next plans?
Yeah, so we want to do more festivals, and the brief is similar, like the idea of borders or the idea of finding a way forward in today's challenges. And yeah, the next plan is to find funding, because it's quite hard with culture, how to get funding for the arts, and then be able to invite artists and have the show. So yeah, I think we will open the residency at the end of in the beginning of the new year, and then start on finding the next steps to a festival, I guess.
But I mean, it's difficult to have residency in that area because it's not the big city. It's like a smaller city to bring like many people in that one place. I think that the challenge as well.
Definitely. Because I think in the first year we learned that, like, Ratika, my sister, and I, we can't really be the artists and the coordinators because it was too much. Like, I'm the driver. I'm making sure the Wi-Fi is working. We have to make sure the food is ready. So there's a lot of coordination required. And the interesting part, though, is to see that there are sound people and they're very good at sound. And the electricians are very good. Like, even though you're in the middle of nowhere, people are very devoted to their work, and it's really nice to connect. And they also feel quite inspired. There was a tailor in our next village, and a lot of people from outside India went to him to stitch some clothes just when they were there, like a shirt or something. And he's like, my business got better because they're like, oh, you have foreigners coming to your shop. So it's very interesting, the little stories. And yeah, it's difficult, but it's also fun, and it's very chaotic. Yeah.
Well, that's really open up the local mindset as well, seeing different type of people, also especially seeing the artwork.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They enjoy it, and they enjoy the conversations. And a lot of boys from our village, they've been doing yoga with one of my yoga friends because he wanted to help them with anxiety and all this anger that the youth might have, which might become alcoholism later, because Punjab has a lot of problems with alcoholism. So it's really nice to see these boys now over 6-7 years, growing up. And then they also, one of them is a videographer. So he started making small films, and they do plays because my mom has been doing theater workshops. So it's nice to grow together in the rural village context, because we are also living in the city, but it's nice to see both parts of India.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I remember that place. Amazing. Yeah, but so something also I have another question. We could be the last question because now it's 5 here. Then see now like you today like you the role is speaker, not the audience. I think after like having a talk, having being a speaker, what you would like to know from other country? Because we are going to carry on this program for the future. But now it's the 5th time. I think we're planning to do another 5 times. Wow. Yeah. What you'd like to know from different countries?
I think it's from the COVID, like the frustration of feeling quite blocked and locked in. What kept people going? What kept them happy and kind of focused? I'm quite interested in that to see how, because I think it's all comes back to the mind and the resilience of finding the way, because it's a fight, like already being in design or running a business, and then you have a worldwide pandemic. So how did they survive it, and what kept them going, I guess?
Yeah, mind control. Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, but yeah, it's really good to hear that. Yeah, so direct also. Yeah, also Hara-san said thank you for interesting stories of your work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But they're like Sotaro's parents.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice. I remember Sotaro. Nice. Great.
Yeah, I think we'd like to hear more about that story from each country. So we are going to knock door. Then, guys, we will let you know which next country it's. Okay, but everyone, do you have any questions? But if not, maybe if anyone can turn on the video, let's say hi and bye together. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hello. But how is Knock Knock India, Dan? Wow. Thank you, design boss. I think Palavi work was interesting work. What to do with the education for the children. Also, quality is really good.
Yeah. Really fun as well.
Yeah. It's a nice collaboration as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think only 4 people. I will to turn on this video. Yeah. Okay. Everyone, thank you so much for joining this talk event today. So we are going to do another one end of this month. So see you soon. So bye-bye.
Bye.